we get rolling with this week's video, I do believe we have a secret giveaway winner to announce. So at some point in last week's video, some sort of magical phantom hand kind of showed this in the frame. And all you had to do is go to that website, which was benhorn.com/whatcoulditbe. And you found that what could it be was in fact a 5-pack of Fuji Velvia 50 35mm film. And the reason I am giving this away for free is that, well, I got it for free. I posted a picture on Instagram using the hashtag #IShootFujiFilm, and little did I know that actually entered me into a contest for their 35mm and 120 Instagram account, and the prize was 10 rolls of film of my choice. So I chose 10 rolls of Velvia 50 in the medium format 120 format, but they also sent me some 35mm film as well. So I already gave away the 120 film. Now this is for the 35mm film. And I just had Siri choose a random number between 1 and 154. The number was 14, so it was actually a pretty early entry. And the winner of the film is Tim McGlynn. So I will reach out to you in just a little bit. I'll give you the opportunity to perhaps see it here in this video, but then I'll reach out to you and I'll get your address where I can send you your free film. But this week's video is all about going on a trip and not shooting photos. Hope you guys enjoy. What is going on, everyone? So in this week's video, I want to talk about something that I was thinking about a lot before going into my spring trip, but I didn't want to record a video on it because I didn't want to kind of jinx myself. And it has to do with going on a dedicated photo trip and coming away empty-handed, coming away without any photos that are solid shots, that are portfolio shots. And it has been a little while since that happened to me. The last time was back in 2011. And every single trip I've gone on since then, I've done quite well. And my goal for each trip is to come away with at least one portfolio shot. And even if I don't, I mean, I'll gain knowledge about an area and maybe it'll help me on a return trip, but generally I've been quite productive on the trips. There's been trips where I get, 1 or 2 photos, which is great. And then there's some trips that are pretty crazy, like my winter trip, where I photographed 10 scenes and I have 8 shots in my portfolio from that, which is highly unusual for me. And though in the moment on that trip, it was a little bit frustrating because I didn't feel like I was doing really good work. But then when I got the film back, I realized, it was tough situations, but I was making the right decisions. But if we go back to that trip in 2011 where I didn't get any shots, it was a trip to Buckskin Gulch. It's in kind of southern Utah, northern Arizona, kind of like straddling the border there. It's a really, really long slot canyon. I think it's like 17 miles long. Most of it is not super wide. I'd say maybe a good chunk of it's maybe 20, 30 feet wide, but there's some areas where it kind of narrows down a little bit. But when you have a slot canyon that kind of snakes around, that's where you have your best opportunity to have some really nice reflected light, because the light kind of bounces around, you can kind of see around corners and stuff. But Buckskin Gulch is largely very straight. There's not a lot of areas where it snakes around, so even though it's this big dramatic canyon, it can be kind of difficult to photograph. So that particular year, I had kind of a shot in mind that I wanted to shoot, kind of this idealized reflected light canyon shot. And so I spent a lot of time kind of scouring that canyon, going up and down it and kind of different times of day, just to try to get a really good feeling for where the good shots are going to be. I found a couple scenes in particular and I took some photos there, but when I got home, I just didn't really like any of the photos because nothing really lived up to what I had in my mind as this pre-visualized photo, because at the time I thought that's kind of what photographers do. They have this picture in their mind and then they go out and they pursue it and they try to find it. But I've since learned that that's not the best plan. It's actually not a great plan at all, because if you go into a trip with an expectation of getting a photo like that, you're almost always going to be let down. The approach that I've adopted since then is really just to be more open to my surroundings and to be very observant to what's around me. So if I were to go back in time to that trip, I'm sure that I walked past many really, really great opportunities, but I kind of set them aside. I kind of ignored them. I didn't really pay much attention to those opportunities because I was so focused on getting that one particular photo. On my spring trip that I just went on, there's one tree in particular in that canyon that I was really hoping to photograph. It's this really cool cottonwood tree kind of in a bend of a canyon. And it just stands there so nicely, nice shape to it. And one of my goals on the spring trip was to photograph that tree. But I knew deep down that maybe that might not work out. Maybe I won't be able to find good light on that tree. And so there were several different times when I stood there just kind of watching that tree and waiting, and it just never really materialized quite the way that I wanted to. And at one point I kind of gave up on photographing it because the weather was changing. It wasn't quite ideal anymore. And as hiking back to camp, I found an even better scene. Way better tree, better backdrop, really ideal light, perfect conditions. And it's a tree that I had walked past quite a few times as I was heading to that other tree. And so by being kind of more open to my surroundings and being more observant, I found a photo that was perhaps even better than the one that I set out to capture. So I think that's kind of the moral of the story here. Don't fixate on one particular photo because that kind of puts on blinders and you're not going to notice all those small details and everything else around you. And the question I have for you guys is, if you guys have gone on a trip where you didn't walk away with any photos, what do you think the cause was for that? Was it something similar that I ran into, or was it something different? I'd be curious to read that in the comments down below. But I want to thank everyone for watching, and we'll see you around next week.